the shocking and disturbing epidemic that the quarantine has caused worldwide? If you want to find out, keep watching. I'm going to talk about that right now. Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Danielle. If you're a returning subscriber, then thank you for coming back. If you're new here, then welcome. Normally I would tell you that I want to encourage, motivate, and inspire you to become the best version of yourself you can be, physically, emotionally, and mentally, and that is absolutely true. Normally I try to talk about all things positive, encouraging, and motivating and uplifting on my channel, but today's topic is a little bit different. I do want to bring awareness and education to a situation that is affecting us worldwide, that is quite serious and quite heavy on my heart, but it is something I think that we do need to talk about and be made aware of. Today I want to talk to you about the shocking rise in domestic and family violence worldwide in the quarantine. It has been dubbed by the New York Times as the intimate terror. Before you click out of this video because it's not a topic that you would be interested in, or you don't think it affects you, or you're just really uncomfortable talking about it or hearing about it, don't do that. And the reason I say that is because I do believe that we have a responsibility to offer aid and assistance and help to people whenever and wherever we can with whatever means we have. And part of the way that we do that is by becoming informed and educated. And you never know whether something like this could affect a stranger you run into, or a coworker, or perhaps even a neighbor or a friend, or even a family member. And if that happens, you want to be prepared. You want to know what to look for and what to do and how you can help. I did feel really compelled to talk about this issue and release this video right on the heels of my communication in conflict video that I just did. If you haven't seen that, I'll link it above. But in that video, I talked about setting boundaries and really realizing when you're dealing with conflict in communication, what's okay and what isn't. And I did talk about the fact that some boundaries that you want to set are no physical violence, no damage to your property, that those things are not okay, no verbal or emotional violence. And I do want to mention that there are some circumstances where I think you're not going to be able to control that, and you're not going to be able to set those boundaries appropriately because either you are dealing with somebody that has tendencies towards domestic or family violence, or you might be dealing with somebody that has a substance abuse problem. If they are a person that abuses alcohol or drugs, for example, they are not going to have rational conversation with you where you can feasibly and appropriately set boundaries to keep yourself safe and to have good communication in conflict. In those instances, you really want to work on an exit plan, and you really want to work on a plan to keep yourself safe. And I did think that was important to talk about because I didn't mention that in that video. But in my research, when I was really looking through exactly what I was going to talk about regarding this and how I was going to broach the subject, that is when I really found out the staggering and shocking information that's out there regarding specifically the rise of domestic and family violence in quarantine. And I didn't really even know that it had risen so much and that it had become such an epidemic within an epidemic. And that's really why I wanted to talk to you about this right now this week. While the quarantine serves to keep people safe and healthy, it does further isolate victims of family and domestic violence, and it does endanger them even more. China has seen a surge of domestic violence calls since February of 2020 in comparison to last year, and their number of domestic violence cases has tripled since that time. Spain saw an 18% increase in domestic violence incidences in the first 2 weeks of lockdown in comparison to the previous 2 months. In the United States, 1 in every 4 American women and 1 in every 7 American men have reported being a victim of domestic violence sometime in their lifetime, which means that they have experienced being beaten, being hit, having an object be thrown at them, or being burned by their partner. New York City Hope, which is a domestic violence resource website based in New York City, saw their daily site visits increase from 45 visits a day to 115 visits a day from March 18th to April 5th this year of 2020. The Seattle Police Department said that they saw a 20% increase in domestic violence calls since the quarantine began. A report by the U.S. Justice Department states on non-fatal domestic violence cases, 76% reported are women and 24% reported are men. It's also important to note when we talk about family violence that the Child Help National Hotline that is there to help victims of child abuse has reported a 23% increase in calls in March of 2020 and a 263% increase in the amount of texts that they received in 2020 in comparison to March of 2019. So domestic and family violence is something that is affecting everybody. It is also really important to talk about the fact that domestic and family violence can happen to anyone, anywhere. It is not specific to gender, race, sexual orientation, or religious beliefs. Anyone can become a victim. What is the driving factor behind why we're seeing a rise and spike in domestic and family violence right now? It is really because we are in the middle of a worldwide crisis, and I believe, now I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a doctor, I didn't become an investigative journalist last night, so please don't leave me a lot of hate comments in my comments. This is just my own perception and my own observation, but I really do believe, and I think based on what I've seen and experienced in my own life, that when people are put in times of crisis or trial or something that is really difficult for them in their lives, it really brings out the core person that they are. It brings out their character. It brings out the personality traits that they really have inside them, whether they want that to happen or not. So if someone you know is going through extreme stress or a really bad trial, and they are normally a really kind, caring, smart, level-headed individual, you will see that exemplified even more in the times of trial that they're put through. But if you are living with someone or you know someone that has the tendencies of an abuser or the tendencies of someone who has addictions or a substance abuse user, you will see that also exemplified in times of extreme stress or trial. So I do think that it kind of brings that forward, just like they say that you don't want to get married or have a baby thinking that it's going to solve all of your interpersonal relationship problems, because it will just exemplify and bring those problems or situations to light even more, which I also believe is true based on my own experience. I think that times where we have these situations that we don't realize are going to happen, that are undue stress, it really does bring about either the best or the worst in people, depending on what their core values are, depending on what their character traits are, and we really do see that come through. We know that domestic and family violence is really rooted in power and control, so in a situation where an abuser may feel helpless or may feel like they can't control what's going on around them, they want to exert that power and control on their victims because they want to feel some power and control when they're in a situation that they can't control and they have no power over. This topic is also extremely timely right now because victims of domestic and family violence have less outlets than they've had in the past and less ways that they can keep themselves safe by means of going to work or going to school or having social connections. They don't have those types of outlets like they had before. Right now, a lot of victims also feel like they don't have anywhere to turn because they can't turn to friends or family members because of the quarantine and the social distancing laws, and wanting to keep their family members, especially older family members like parents, physically safe and healthy. They don't want to potentially expose them to the virus unknowingly by coming and staying with them if they're in an unsafe situation. Lack of financial security may be also something that victims are really dealing with at this time if they've lost their job or if they don't have access or control to any money or finances in their relationship. So how can we tell that this is going on? And if we think that something's going on, what can we do about it? One of the first telltale signs that you will be able to notice is isolation. If you notice that someone you're close to is withdrawing, maybe they are not answering your calls or your texts, maybe they are not responding to you the way they normally would. They could just be really busy. It could also mean that they are experiencing maybe some emotional issues like depression or anxiety, but that is something that you need to pay attention to. I would really say if you know someone well, if you're close to somebody, or even if you're just out in public and you notice that something isn't right, listen to that sixth sense, listen to your gut, because your gut is trying to tell you something that you need to pay attention to. A lot of times in relationships we can tell when something is off or something just doesn't feel right, or a person is behaving in a way that's out of character for them. And if you see that happening to someone that you're close to, or if you come across a situation in public that you know looks bad or doesn't look like something that should be going on, you need to pay attention to that. So isolation is really key. A lot of times an abuser will take their victim and cut them off from contact with their friends and family. They don't want their victim to potentially tell anyone what's going on. The other thing that may be happening is that the victim may have been threatened by the abuser. You better not tell anyone. Perhaps their kids or somebody they're close to has been threatened, and they don't want to get in trouble with their abuser. They don't want to cause more trouble, and they also don't want to see people that they care about and love be harmed. So that's another reason why they might withdraw, because they just don't want to get other people that they care about involved. So if you notice a pattern of isolation, that's definitely something that you want to pay attention to. The other thing is controlling everything that they do. And if you notice that that's going on, I read an article about a woman in China that wasn't even allowed to go to the bathroom in private because her husband controlled absolutely everything that she did. So if you notice a situation of constant and continual surveillance, if you know that someone can't even have a phone conversation with you in private or isn't allowed to call you unless they've verified it with their partner, then that's a sign that you need to pay attention to. If you have somebody in your life that you might see socially and you know that they can't spend any money or go anywhere without alerting their partner or letting their partner know exactly when they're going to be back and exactly who they're with and what they're doing. If you notice that their partner puts restrictions on who they can see and when, or restrictions on what they can wear or how they're supposed to dress, or maybe what they're allowed to eat, those are all signs that the person that is close to you might be in a domestic violence situation or in an abusive relationship, and that's something that you really need to pay attention to. So if you notice anything like this, and I want to caution you too, you may come across a stranger or something in public that you see that you know is not right. Definitely be careful. You do not want to put yourself in danger. So the first thing I would tell you, if you really see something that is violent or something that you know isn't right, definitely call 911. That's why we have local law enforcement. You don't want to put yourself in danger. I remember one time I was in a grocery store late at night, and I heard several aisles away a woman screaming at a child, and I heard her smacking the child, and I heard the child crying, and I couldn't help it. I went to see what was going on, and it was like 9:30 at night, and the child was a toddler, probably about 2 years old, and I just went up to her and I said, "Ma'am, I'd love to help you out. Would you like me to stay with your child so you can grocery shop and get your grocery shopping done quicker? I'd be happy to do that for you." And she declined. She said no, but I think because she knew that I was aware of her behavior, she was no longer hitting the child. She was no longer screaming. A lot of times when people get really angry or an abuser gets in a situation where they just get explosively angry, they don't realize that other people around them really can see and hear their behavior, and once they're alerted to the fact that other people are noticing their behavior, they'll stop. So that's another thing, but again, I want to caution you not to put yourself in danger, but just to be aware, if you know a friend or family member that you think might be in a dangerous situation, I want to also let you know that telling them just to leave is not a good piece of advice. A lot of times it is not something that a victim can just do, and I know this from experience, which I might share with you later on, but usually if you just ask a victim, are you being abused? Are you in a dangerous situation with your partner? What's going on at home? They'll tell you everything is fine. A lot of times they won't even tell you the truth. They will lie to you. So just asking them if they're okay, if they're safe, is really not enough. If you think that something is off, like I said, you really need to do something about it. So what can you do and what should you do? Really being a resource and an emotional support for that person, letting that person know that you're not judging them, you're not going to lecture them, that you're just going to listen and be there for them is a great thing to do. Also, supporting local shelters and resources for people that are victims of domestic violence or family violence is a great thing to do right now. I think that a lot of our shelters and resources are really hurting financially, and they're also really hurting for space, and they're also hurting for tangible physical goods. A lot of times people that are victims of family or domestic violence have to flee their homes and surroundings with nothing. They are not able to pack any items, take anything with them, so they have to flee and start over with nothing, so they depend on other outside resources, whether it be shelters or other resources, to help provide them with the necessities such as clothes and other things that they need for survival. So turning to your local shelters and local organizations and offering donations, either financial or items, is a great thing to do. And just being aware, being willing and able to pay attention around you and see what's actually going on around you is really important, because you never know the difference that you might make in somebody's life if you act and react in an appropriate and timely manner. It may mean the difference for them between life and death, so it's really important. Lastly, I want to talk to anyone out there that could be watching that is currently a victim of domestic or family violence. Please, I want to encourage you, please get help. I will put some resources on the screen and in the description box that you can call, that you can use to get the help you need. Call a friend, call a family member, call a local church. Local churches right now are really working 24/7 to be a resource for people in need, all kinds of needs. And I know that they would love to talk with you, pray with you, help you. So please, please, please reach out and get some help, and know that whatever is happening in your situation is not your fault and you do not deserve it. So just really know that I care about you and I want you to get the help that you need. And this is not something that you have to go through alone. Please look at the resources that I'm going to leave in the description box and on the screen. I hope everybody found this video insightful and informative, and I hope it sparked something in your heart the way it did in mine, that I really do want to be a resource. I really do want to help. I think this is a terrible epidemic, and I do believe that we do have an obligation and a responsibility to help those who need our help whenever we can, like I said many times before. So with that, thank you so much for watching, and as always, make your everyday, ordinary life extraordinary.